Court of Queensland is in session. Any person having business before the court, come forward, announce your presence, and you will be heard. Please be seated.
We gather this morning to farewell our Chief Justice. All judges of the court sit today, excepting only two who cannot be here: the President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Sofronoff, and Justice Mellifont. Each is confined at home as a close contact of a family member who has tested positive for COVID. Fortunately, they are not unwell, and those who tested positive are not suffering serious symptoms. Each judge has asked me to express great regret at being unable to be here in person. Both are watching a live stream of the ceremony. We welcome to this important event in the life of the court all who have come to the court or are present virtually or are watching the ceremony as it is streamed, including to the two overflow courts. We acknowledge the Attorney-General, Ms Fenterman, Chief Justice Kiefel of the High Court of Australia, the Chief Judge and judges of the District Court, judges of the Federal Court, the Chief Justice of the Family Court, judges of the Family Court and Federal Circuit Court, the Chief Magistrate and Magistrates, the Vice President of the Industrial Court, and the President and members of the Land Court. We acknowledge the presence of many former judges of this court, all of whom served with the Chief Justice. One such former judge who we acknowledge is, of course, former Governor and former Chief Justice de Jersey. And we acknowledge the presence of many former judges of other courts. We acknowledge the Shadow Attorney-General, Mr Nichols. At the bar table, in addition to the Attorney-General, are the Solicitor-General, Mr Thompson, the President of the Bar Association, Mr Sullivan, and the President of the Law Society, Ms Thompson. Many people are watching the ceremony as it is live streamed. I acknowledge attendance in that way by the Chief Justices of New Zealand, Victoria and Western Australia. Justices Keane and Edelman of the High Court have expressed their regret they cannot attend because of prior commitments. So also have a great many other judges, retired judges and others who would wish to be here if their commitments allowed it, including the Chief Justices of other states and of territories, the Chief Justice of the Federal Court of Australia and retired New South Wales Chief Justice Bathurst. Former Chief Justice Carmody has sent his best wishes and regret at not being able to attend. Special mention must be made of the Chief Justice's husband Arthur and their children Rosemary, Martin and Ellen. You are, of course, very welcome VIPs at this event. We also warmly welcome the Chief Justice's siblings and in-laws, Anne, Roger and Anne, Felicity, John, Beverly and, via streaming, Lorraine, and the Chief Justice's nephew David and his partner Tammy, and the many friends of the Chief Justice here today. Amongst that group, we acknowledge former Governor, the Honourable Anine Ford. Reflecting the extraordinary longevity of the Chief Justice's service on this court, I think the whole of the front row of the public seating in the middle is occupied by the Chief Justice's past associates, and another two are present virtually. Also present in large numbers are judges' spouses and partners, departmental officers, tribunal members and retired members, academics, court officers and past and present officers of the Queensland Law Society, amongst many others. I apologise if I have missed anyone, as I surely have. And I hope you will understand why, as I read the daunting list of attendees and apologies, I was tempted by the suggestion of a colleague that I should simply arraign you all in bulk. When the Chief Justice was sworn in as Chief Justice in this courtroom on 11 September 2015, she advanced two propositions at the beginning of her speech. The first was the proposition that the presence of large numbers of attendees at that ceremony was not a tribute to her. The judges sitting in bank take this unique opportunity of overruling the Chief Justice and rejecting that proposition. We accept the Chief Justice's second proposition, which was that the presence of so many is a recognition of the significance of this court and of the occasion in its life. But we take the large numbers of attendees also to be a tribute to the Chief Justice. Many of you will already be familiar with the Chief Justice's career in the law. The Chief Justice graduated from universities with various degrees, including economics from the Australian National University and law from the University of Queensland. Having been admitted as a solicitor in 1982 and later as a barrister in 1984, having worked as a Commonwealth prosecutor from 1984 to 1986, and having from then been in private practice as a barrister, the Chief Justice was awarded a Bachelor of Arts Honours in 1989 and a Master of Laws Advanced in 1998 from the University of Queensland. In that way, it became clear at an early stage of the Chief Justice's career that she had an aptitude not only for high academic achievement, but also for multitasking, an essential prerequisite for a Chief Justice. If history is any guide, the President of the Law Society will say something of the Chief Justice's admission as a solicitor. Similarly, the President of the Bar Association may be expected to say something about the Chief Justice's practice as a barrister. Of that era in the Chief Justice's life, I will therefore mention only a few events that occurred within the space of 12 months. As barristers, the Chief Justice and I were instructed by Legal Aid Queensland to appear together for the appellant in an anti-discrimination case in the High Court called X and the Commonwealth, the judgment in which is reported in volume 200 of the Commonwealth Law Reports at page 177. The case was complex. The brief was challenging. Ms Holmes of Counsel, junior counsel as the Chief Justice then was, prepared and gave to me a first draft of the outline of argument for the appellant. It was also the last draft. The humbling realisation that I could not suggest any change that might improve her draft remains quite fresh in my memory. That appeal was heard in mid-1999. In the same year, the Chief Justice had concluded her involvement as counsel assisting in the Ford Commission of Inquiry into Child Abuse. Later in the same year, she served for 3 months as an acting judge of the District Court. By the quality of her work, including her work in the inquiry, in the High Court and on the District Court, the Chief Justice's already high professional reputation was yet further enhanced. And in the same year she was appointed senior counsel. For most barristers, such a year would have been truly remarkable. For the Chief Justice, it serves merely to exemplify the range and quality of her professional work after she started in the legal profession. After an eminent career at the bar, the Chief Justice was appointed to the court in March 2000. The appointment was, of course, well received. She was sworn in during a joint ceremony with Justice Mullins, now a Judge of Appeal, and the late and much lamented Peter Dutney. After serving as a judge in the Trial Division for some 6 years, and for part of that period also as a judge of the Mental Health Court, in 2006 the Chief Justice was appointed as a Judge of Appeal. At the swearing-in ceremony in May 2006, Chief Justice de Jersey, reflecting the general view, described her honours service as a Judge of the Trial Division as one of dedication and distinction. The final step up in this outstanding judicial career, at least I assume it was the final step, occurred in September 2015 when Justice Holmes was appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I claim to be able to speak with some authority about the personal and professional qualities the Chief Justice displayed during the whole of her long judicial career, having appeared before her as an advocate in the Trial Division and in the Court of Appeal, before joining her as a Judge of Appeal some 14 years ago. When in court, the Chief Justice was calm, courteous and efficient. Her efficiency was, of course, assisted by the depth of her sharp intellect and the breadth of her learning. She was plain-spoken. She was firm where firmness was required. It hardly need be said that she was fair. It is general knowledge that her reserved judgments were produced promptly. Even so, her judgments are as concise as is appropriate and consistent with the obligation to give reasoned decisions. They are scholarly where scholarship is required. Also notable is the clarity of her judgments. The impressive quality of the Chief Justice's writing is a hallmark of her judgments, as it is of all her written work. This may be a reflection of her love of literature and her voracious appetite for reading. In January 2020, the Chief Justice's work was recognised by her appointment as a Companion of the Order of Australia for eminent service to the judiciary, notably to criminal, administrative and mental health law, and to the community of Queensland. Her appointment as Chief Justice was very warmly welcomed by the judges, as it was by all who knew her character and the excellence of her qualifications for that office. In due course, the appointment made more widely known another of the Chief Justice's qualifications for the office, the excellence of her speeches, both prepared and off the cuff. On all topics, and she has spoken on innumerable occasions and about remarkably diverse subjects, her speeches have been informative and appropriate, and she engaged her audiences by allowing glimpses of that characteristic, quick and bone-dry wit. The true extent of the onerous duties of a Chief Justice may not be generally appreciated in the community. The emails and telephone calls demanding the personal attention of the Chief Justice are incessant, meeting piles upon meeting, and the administrative work is relentless. It is a tribute to the Chief Justice that she calmly coped with all of that, including her share of the intensive work resulting from the pandemic, whilst at the same time dealing with a substantial list of judicial business in the trial and appeal divisions of the court. She did so with apparent ease, but inevitably at the cost of hard work and long hours. I have misled you if I have given the impression that there were no bumps in the very long road travelled by the Chief Justice. About this, it is, I think, sufficient on this occasion to say that the Chief Justice's very extensive vocabulary appears not to include the expression backward step. And many of you will know that, in addition to compassion, the Chief Justice brought to her role her innate courage and strength of character and an absolute independence of mind. It has been a pleasure and a privilege for we judges to have been members of the court under the stewardship of the Chief Justice. We today make public our respect and admiration for the Chief Justice. We farewell her as an ally in the relentless task of delivering justice according to law. And speaking also as friends, Chief Justice, we wish you well in a richly deserved holiday, endless streams of literature, and a new and rewarding phase of your life. Attorney General.
May it please the Court, I'd like to start by respectfully acknowledging the Turrbal and Yagara peoples, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I echo all of the acknowledgements made by His Honour and extend my welcome to judicial officers, representatives and members of the legal profession, and of course the family and friends and former associates of the Chief Justice here today. I am honoured to be here today to celebrate the incredible contribution that the Chief Justice has made to the legal profession and the law over a most distinguished career. Your Honour has lived a life of exemplary service to others, pursuing a life in the law at a time when women in the profession were few and support for working women was nothing like what is available today. Born in Brisbane and educated locally, Your Honour moved to the nation's capital to study economics and law at ANU. And upon returning to Queensland, Your Honour completed your Bachelor of Laws while working as a research assistant at the University of Queensland's Psychology Department. And no doubt Your Honour picked up some skills during that time that later helped you manage a sometimes unruly court. On graduating in 1980, Your Honour became a clerk in the Office of the Official Receiver in Bankruptcy. You completed the legal practice course where I understand that Your Honour particularly enjoyed cross-examination. Then admitted, Your Honour gained work at the Prosecution's Office of the Deputy Crown Solicitor. Here, Your Honour prosecuted summary hearings and committal trials. At the time, all but one of your colleagues were men. You moved to the private bar in 1986 and joined the chambers of James Crowley QC at the New Inns of Court, where again you were the only female barrister on the floor. With your knowledge, skills and determination, you built a thriving practice in crime, personal injuries and administrative law. Your legal expertise saw you serve as a part-time member of the Anti-Discrimination Tribunal and Deputy President of the Queensland Community Corrections Board. Your Honour also took up a role as counsel assisting in the Ford Commission of Inquiry into Child Abuse. In 1999, Your Honour was appointed Senior Counsel. Your colleagues from the Ford Inquiry recall you as a young professional who quickly made your mark on commissioners, staff and those who came before you. I'm told that you came recommended as a most competent barrister and quickly became recognised for the work you achieved. Your Honour's gentle and respectful manner in questioning was matched with your penetrating scepticism. I'm told you left no room for bleeding hearts. In fact, the Honourable Anine Ford QC considered you the backbone of the inquiry and advises me that the commissioners and staff were most grateful to have you. During your time in the profession, Your Honour was generous in providing assistance to legal colleagues and proactive in mentoring young lawyers. Colleagues consider one of your most outstanding qualities Your Honour's no-fuss humility. In 1999, Your Honour was appointed as an acting judge of the District Court and then subsequently appointed to the Supreme Court in March 2000, an occasion shared with current judicial colleague Justice Deborah Mullins and the late Justice Peter Dutney. Your Honour served as a judge on the Mental Health Court and in 2006 you were appointed a judge of the Queensland Court of Appeal. During 2011 and 12, Your Honour conducted the comprehensive Queensland Floods Commission of Inquiry. The inquiry provided more than 350 recommendations, combined in its interim and final reports to local, state and federal government agencies, which has helped improve our disaster preparedness and responses. Your Honour's contribution to the law was recognised in January 2020 with appointment as Companion of the Order of Australia for eminent service to the judiciary, notably to criminal, administrative and mental health law and to the community of Queensland. I'm advised that Your Honour's love of reading on occasion crept into your role as a judicial officer, with more than one potential associate being interviewed on what they are currently reading, with some weight being placed on the answers provided. At your swearing in as a Supreme Court judge, Your Honour said that you had no desire to be representative of any particular group and hoped instead that your background and experience would serve to provide a wider perspective. You also stated that you aspired to fairness, reasonableness and compassion, which you opined weren't linked to a person's gender. You stated that you were a black-letter lawyer. Your achievements stand as an inspiration to generations of lawyers in Queensland, regardless of gender, and that deserves recognition today. In September 2015, Your Honour became the first woman sworn in as Chief Justice of Queensland in the court's 152-year history. Throughout your service, you have consistently exemplified the fact that courts should be accessible and available to all. Your tireless commitment to this conviction has been of great benefit to the people in Queensland. In your role, Your Honour has displayed intellect and tenacity, refined during a career in the law. Your leadership of the court during the COVID-19 pandemic has been exemplary and has allowed Queenslanders to continue to have access to justice while ensuring the safety of all court users and staff. The concept of service strongly underpins Your Honour's ethos, and I know the provision of pro bono legal assistance by members of the profession is a subject close to your heart. Throughout your career, Your Honour has consistently been recognised as a sharp legal mind driven by a strong work ethic, which I hear sometimes resulted on late-night night owl runs for ice cream, and a very loyal colleague. You are considered an astute judge of character, a standout leader amongst the profession, and a kind and thoughtful friend. Your Honour, through your intellect, steadying influence, loyalty and compassion, you have led by example during your leadership of the Supreme Court of Queensland. Your term has brought harmony and enabled the courts to focus on the business of delivering justice to Queenslanders. I know how important family is to you, and no doubt your family will be delighted to be able to enjoy more time with you now that you have a less demanding schedule. I congratulate you on an esteemed legal and judicial career and wish you all the very best for the next chapter of life after the bench. May it please the court.
Mr. Solicitor. Mr. Sullivan.
May it please the court. It is a privilege and a pleasure to speak today on behalf of the Bar Association of Queensland on the occasion of Your Honour's Valedictory ceremony. It is an occasion to say an official and very public farewell and pay tribute to Your Honour's decades of service. Both as a barrister and as a judge of this court, you have been the model of industry, intellect and respectful good humour. Chief Justice Holmes, I extend particular welcome to your husband Arthur and to your children Rosemary, Martin and Ellen, and other members of your family who join us here today. Arthur has shown remarkable equanimity to seem to enjoy so many of these occasions. We hope that he enjoys basking in a little of your reflected glory this morning. Today we celebrate a remarkable judicial career spanning 22 years in the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal and as Chief Justice, with the anniversary of Your Honour's appointment falling this Wednesday. The precursor to Your Honour's time at the bench was 16 years as a member of the Queensland Bar. At the Bar, Your Honour had a broad and successful practice in criminal law, personal injuries, commercial and administrative law, the latter of which you undertook a lot of the work as pro bono work. In your administrative law practice, you carried out many matters before the Anti-Discrimination Tribunal, which you then joined as a part-time member in 1994, a role which you continued until your appointment as Deputy President of the Queensland Community Corrections Board in 1997. In 1998, you took a role as counsel assisting the Ford Commission of Inquiry into abuse of children in Queensland institutions. That inquiry required a delicate balance of maintaining fairness whilst causing no further harm to people who had already been devastated by the dreadful childhood experiences. Your Honour's deep respect for people, coupled with your customary humility and empathy, equipped you well to carry out this difficult task. Following the conclusion of the inquiry, you spent 3 months as an acting district court judge and in the same year took silk. In 2000, Your Honour was appointed to the Supreme Court. We hope it is not seen to take anything away from Your Honour's fine career at the Bar to make the observation that it was on this court that Your Honour truly flourished. You quickly became known as a judge possessed of the highest judicial qualities, one who could be relied upon to have read and understood the material, to ask the incisive questions without ever causing embarrassment to the questioned, one who was impartial and balanced with a true appreciation of the need for the court to be seen to deliver a fair opportunity for litigants to advance their cases. Your Honour served on this court until your appointment to the Court of Appeal in 2006 and ultimately your appointment as Chief Justice in September of 2015. When Your Honour took up the position of Chief Justice, in the midst of considerable public attention surrounding the court, you stated your desire to make the court itself entirely unnewsworthy. Throughout your tenure, you have achieved that goal, but in doing so, it has not been unnoteworthy. Your dry wit and the generosity of your spirit have been the hallmarks of your time as Chief Justice. Your Honour's leadership has always been of a quiet style. On numerous occasions, I have spoken of the outstanding job you have done through the COVID period. I have observed how Your Honour brought people together from the various government departments, the state courts, the Bar Association, the Law Society, the offices of the Department of the Public Prosecutor and the Public Defender, and of Legal Aid. On a weekly basis and later on a monthly basis, Your Honour sought and achieved broad consensus on difficult issues as they arose. The products of this process will in many respects be entirely invisible to the greater community, and yet they have provided invaluable benefits to that very community in terms of ensuring that both the criminal and civil state courts have been able to continue to deliver throughout the pandemic period prompt, efficient and fair outcomes for litigants. In touching on this matter, I do not suggest that your leadership during COVID defined your period as Chief Justice. Rather, I do so merely to indicate that it illustrates how you have conducted yourself throughout your term, always without any note of the vainglorious. However, as much as the attention may pay, Your Honour, it is appropriate to note that you have been a beacon for many lawyers in this state. You are this state's first female Chief Justice. Well before that position, you had been a leader in the promotion of women in the profession, including as a founding member of the Women's Legal Service. Perhaps one of the defining features of Your Honour's court is the importance placed on the principle of judicial independence, the safeguard which ensures judges are impartial and independent in their judgments. The maintenance of the court's neutrality in the face of external pressure is worthy of reinforcing, so that its judges may serve fearlessly and deliver fair judgments. Underpinning that focus has been Your Honour's desire for fairness, reasonableness and compassion. Whilst you will no longer be a member of this court, your upholding of these principles will have a lasting benefit. It was those qualities and your eminent service to the judiciary, notably to criminal, administrative and mental health law, and to the community of Queensland, for which you were deservedly recognised as a Companion of the Order of Australia in 2020. So, where might one find Your Honour in retirement? Will you be tending your garden with Arthur, or emerging from a mountain of well-read books? Either way, multiple cups of tea will be close at hand. I'm told if those attempts are unsuccessful, one might find you indulging in your eclectic music tastes. The edgier the better. Assuredly, wherever you may be found, you will continue to involve yourself in good causes. Causes which in the future might find themselves assisted by a selfless leader and a fearless advocate. The Bar Association of Queensland and its members thank you sincerely for your immense service to the court and the community. We wish you and your family all the best in the future. May it please the court.
Ms Thompson.
May it please the court. It is with great pleasure and honour that I stand here today as President of the Queensland Law Society and a member of the legal profession to recognise and celebrate the judicial career of the Honourable Chief Justice Catherine Holmes AC. It is particularly pleasing to be able to do so in a room which is full of warm wishes, not only from the profession, but from those most integral to Her Honour's support and success, her friends, peers, and of course her family, who are no doubt very patiently and eagerly waiting for the opportunity to spend more time with Her Honour as you embark on your next journey. Well, what can I possibly say about Your Honour? What can I say that will do justice to such a well-respected and remarkable member and leader of our legal community and judiciary? Your Honour will no doubt already recognise that the Queensland Law Society has a very special appreciation for your collaborative approach to the advancement and education of the profession. Your Honour has given freely of her time to the solicitors of Queensland, and we are so very grateful for that generous spirit and the sharp wit and humour that often accompanies the occasions on which you have joined us. In particular, I would like to acknowledge Your Honour's engagement with the Law Society, which includes being a headline speaker at our annual symposium, our marquee educational event for solicitors, where Your Honour continues to keep us updated on judicial insights and initiatives. Inviting our members to join you at the New Year profession drinks in the Court Gallery as a way for practitioners to come together at the start of each year, and your welcoming remarks seeking to engage the profession for each year that is to be. You also attend our specialist accreditation breakfast, assisting us in the awarding of our newly appointed accredited specialists and providing your frank and insightful comments. Our members often comment that this event and your involvement in it is a highlight of their career, and having been the recipient in the past, I can personally attest to that. Your Honour may also recall you launched our Modern Advocate Lecture Series in 2016, a series which continues to educate and support our solicitors. There are many other contributions Your Honour has made to the solicitors of the profession. Your Honour has been inclusive and has attended functions in regional areas, meeting with solicitors and gaining an understanding of their practices and pressures. Of course, Your Honour has also regularly attended our legal profession dinner, a night where we celebrate the achievement of the solicitors of Queensland. But for all the events Your Honour has attended and participated in, there are a few key themes that have become apparent. Firstly, Your Honour is incredibly hardworking and committed to meeting the demands that the role of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has brought in an unwavering way, holding steady and firm as its leader at all times, even in rocky times.
Secondly, there can be no doubt that Your Honour is highly regarded and respected, a leading legal mind in Queensland, indeed described by the then Attorney-General on your appointment to the role as Chief Justice as a woman with exceptional intellect. However, it is readily apparent that Your Honour is a very warm, compassionate and considerate woman who is mindful and respectful of others and genuinely interested in making connections. Many of our members leave their interactions with Your Honour and make a remark precisely on those qualities. Thirdly, Your Honour has always conducted yourself in a manner which can only be described as considered, poised, dignified, respectful and inquiring. These qualities and many others have held Your Honour in good stead, steering the ship that is the judicial system in Queensland, even through the rockiest of seas, particularly over the last couple of years, as challenge after challenge has been presented to you and your colleagues. Indeed, when appointed to the role of Chief Justice, it was noted at the time that your appointment would be a fresh start after what had been a period of turmoil, and Your Honour did ensure that the reset button was pressed and shaped a judiciary that we see as collegiate, supportive and productive. Your Honour has embraced change and encouraged collaboration wherever possible to ensure the continuum of the administration of justice in this state, and the solicitors of Queensland, and particularly the Queensland Law Society and its presidents in more recent years who have been witness to those rocky times, are very grateful for your inclusive leadership. In 1982, I am sure Your Honour did not envisage that your career would lead you here or that you would be the subject of a ceremony like this. In 1982, I am also sure that Your Honour would not have anticipated that you would be regarded as one of our key role models in the legal profession. I'm certain your school friends at Oxley and Darra, and perhaps your siblings, also didn't think that at the time. Your Honour was elevated to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in 2015. It was the first time in the then 152-year history of the court that a woman had been appointed to that role, an incredible and very well-deserved achievement. In 2022, approaching 7 years since Your Honour's appointment as Chief Justice and 40 years since you were admitted, we now see 54% of the solicitors in Queensland as women. 27% of the overall solicitors of Queensland have a post-admission experience of 5 years or less, and 25% have a post-admission experience of between 6 and 12 years. In both those cohorts, there are 62 and 63% women respectively, and that is significant. There is a significant proportion of our practising solicitors in Queensland who have only known Your Honour as Chief Justice and the stability that has followed. They have looked to you and up to you in that role, and I can assure you they, and many others, consider you a role model, leading by example to show what hard work and determination can achieve, but also to demonstrate that despite what our history might say, diversity and inclusion is real and is for the benefit of the profession as a whole. Your Honour, the solicitors of Queensland genuinely and warmly wish you all the best as this door closes and the next one opens. We hope the next chapter affords you a brief reprieve to spend time with your family and friends, the time to read a good book or two, and to again press the reset button before you embark on another journey. We are very grateful for your service and leadership. You leave big shoes to fill, and we are very confident your successor will have your continued support and that of the judiciary and profession generally in the way that you have generated and fostered such support throughout your own hard work and dedication. May it please the Court.
Chief Justice.
Well, I have always thought that the great charm of a valedictory would be that you got all the sorts of nice things that would be said at your eulogy without the associated disadvantage of being dead. And that seems to be about right. Thank you very much, Justice Fraser, Attorney General, Mr Sullivan and Ms Thompson. Some self-deprecation in response would be appropriate, but I don't want to spoil anything. So I will instead acknowledge a lot of luck in this career, much of which took the form of the people I encountered along the way, some of whom I'll mention by name, some more generally. The first piece of luck was to be born into a large family with parents and brothers and sisters who were clever and courageous, and here comes a buzzword, resilient. All of my surviving siblings are here, which in itself has taken some courage and resilience. I have thought it an encouraging sign of increasing equity in the legal profession that a woman from a very working class background without any legal connections or the advantage of education at one of the more prominent private schools could achieve the position of Chief Justice. But I'm not sure that there's any universal truth to be found there, because I had a large advantage, which I suspect most kids from lower socio-economic backgrounds today don't have, and that is that I came from a family which read all the time. In a household of 8, there was always an exasperated queue outside the bathroom because someone, often our mother, was ensconced in the bath with a book. Early literacy and the ability with language which flows from that is a very great gift in any calling, and I'm very grateful to have had it. It enabled me to make the little I knew as an undergraduate sound compelling. It does make me an enthusiast of early intervention for disadvantaged kids, particularly with literacy, much better than teaching them to read in the juvenile detention centre. Now, back to my luck, it was, of all the degrees I might have taken, to study law in which I had no background or interest. I've recounted elsewhere that it wasn't until I did work experience as part of the old legal practice course that I went to a courtroom and the magic struck. It was the number 1 arrest court at the old magistrates' court with the drunks tank, so it was an odd spot for a Damascene experience, but that is what I had. And the spell never left me. To this day, I tell new barristers with utter sincerity that advocacy is one of the most stimulating, thrilling occupations you can have the luck to take up. And in that legal practice course, I made lifelong friends, some of whom are here today, including former magistrate Cheryl Cornack. Not many people know this, but it was she who had the idea of setting up the Women's Legal Service, something which came to fruition a couple of years later. I count being in at the start of that another bit of my luck. As I often tell young lawyers about legal service work, it's not just about doing something useful, it's the opportunity to meet like-minded people. Some of my friends from those early days are here today. A women's legal service was a radical notion at the time, but it has gone from strength to strength. I used to put my membership on my CV as a gesture of feminist defiance, but somewhere along the way it became respectable and a career plus. The next bit of luck, which was not evident at the time, was that the only job I could get on admission was as a prosecutor with the Commonwealth Deputy Crown Solicitor's Office and later the Commonwealth DPP. That got me onto my feet in court straight away and gave me a thorough grounding in the rules of evidence. And friends from those days are present, both on and off the bench. More luck, when I went to the private bar, I found myself in an unlikely set of chambers, which Justice Martin unkindly but accurately named the Vatican Vault, with a group of older men who were extraordinarily helpful and supportive. I'm delighted that Kerry Bolton is here today. Jim Crowley QC hoped to be, but wasn't well enough. I also want to mention the late Des Drayden, who was nobody's idea of a feminist icon, but did all he could do to support my practice. And there I want to insert a little message. It's easy to discount someone, possibly cancel them, because of their unfortunate turn of phrase. But I recommend more looking at what they do, because I've met people along the way who had impeccable rhetoric and never did anything to help anyone. I was lucky with solicitors who instructed me at the bar in crime, civil and administrative law, and became good friends. A lot of them are here today. In the 1980s, the major criminal firms were not briefing women, an experience that I know was shared by Judge Dick, who was much senior to me, and Judge Richards. Smaller firms did, and I'm grateful. I particularly want to mention Andrew Bowe, who gave me excellent, interesting criminal work with meticulously prepared briefs. And I want to salute the criminal law practitioners like Sean Reedy, Paul Richards, Peter Russo and Terry Fisher, who put their hearts and souls into the legal aid work we did, despite its being so poorly paid. And I extend that salute to current-day solicitors and barristers taking on legally aided clients who are even worse paid, relatively speaking. Another bit of luck at the bar was to be counsel assisting the Ford inquiry into abuse of children in institutions run by our former Governor, Lenine Ford. Both she and the inquiry secretary, Arlene Jones, are here today. I was fascinated by Mrs. Ford's skill with people. She had an uncanny capacity to reassure witnesses and encourage confidences. I always aspired to emulate that, never managed it. There were some excellent recommendations out of that inquiry, particularly on youth justice. Unfortunately, not all implemented. Now, the next thing, I'm not going to call it luck, except to the extent that being the right person in the right place at the right time is luck, was being asked to take appointment to the Supreme Court in 2000. The Honourable Paul de Jersey, whom I'm delighted to see here today, was the Chief Justice at that time. I'm also very delighted that the Honourable Des Derrington, whose place I took on the bench, is here. He was kind and encouraging to me over the decades following that. I was sworn in with my great friend and colleague, Justice Mullins, and Justice Peter Dutney, lost to us much too early. It was a time when Matt Foley, the Attorney General, was trying to increase female representation on the bench, and a number of women judges were appointed about that time. I don't think it turned out too badly. Anyway, if you want the man to blame, he's over there, and you can take it up with him at morning tea. My judicial career has been lucky in the sense that I've been able to sit in a variety of areas: the trial division, the mental health court, which was fascinating, and the Court of Appeal. If there was a particular golden period in my judicial career, it was under the leadership of Margaret McMurdo. When I sat on the Court of Appeal with colleagues I so admired, respected and liked, like Margaret White, the late John Muir, Richard Chesterman. In that Court of Appeal period, I had the interesting experience of conducting the inquiry into the 2010-2011 floods, which recently I've had plenty of reason to reflect on. It was a gruelling process made tolerable by my committed, hard-working and entertaining team, some of whom are here today. Another piece of good fortune, it wasn't being appointed Chief Justice, I'm quite clear about that, but it was the people I had to support me when I moved into the position. All my colleagues, but particularly Margaret McMurdo and John Byrne as Senior Judge Administrator. Both of them had been through a bruising couple of years, but they rallied around me. And I had the advantage of Kerry O'Brien as Chief Judge in the District Court, a friend as well as a colleague, with whom I formed a small but effectual mutual support and counselling group. I was lucky too that Murray Bergweaver, who had been Chief Justice de Jersey's secretary, came back to help me. Other good fortune was having Julie Steele as Executive Director. She is simply extraordinary. Tireless, across every detail, unflappable, discreet and committed to the court. No one has ever been more deserving of a public service medal. I think I was lucky too with the Director General and Deputy Director General I've had to work with, David Mackey and Jennifer Lang. You start these relationships from a position of mutual wariness, but over 6.5 years of dealing with them, it's developed, on my side at least, into one of trust, occasional gratitude, verging indeed on affection. And I appreciate the very civil relationships I've had with 2 Attorneys General. I'm sorry that because of COVID, the Honourable Yvette Darth wasn't able to join us today. My good luck continued with Janine Mitchell taking on the position of my executive assistant, an appointment for which I am indebted to my good friend, the Honourable Rosalind Atkinson. Ms Mitchell is hard-working, loyal and capable, and of a uniformly sunny disposition, which is a source of wonder to me. I've also had the stalwart assistance of Veronica Radford, who returned typing at the speed of light and was dogged in pursuit of all my travel claims. We've had a very happy set of chambers with unending supplies of cake and biscuits, and I am hoping to lose quite a lot of weight once I'm away from it. Added to that has been the unfortunate influence of the Court of Appeal's long-serving research officer, Bruce Godfrey, who, apart from being knowledgeable and industrious, is a peddler of chocolate. And many of the cakes, I should mention, come from my wonderful neighbours, Stephanie Kelly and Laurie O'Brien, who have given support to my family over the decades in ways well beyond baking. Continuing in the good luck stakes, I come to the appointment of first Justice Anne Lyons and then Justice Boscawen as Senior Judge Administrator. Both have been remarkable. And here's some bad luck for Justice Boscawen. She won't have herself as SJA. I should mention the agreeable and helpful relationship I've had with my fellow Chief Justices around Australia and in New Zealand, as well as the wisdom and support of the Chief Justice of Australia, Susan Kiefel, who, I'm fairly sure at some considerable inconvenience, has done me the honour of being present today. Now, more than good luck, a source of utter delight has been my 19 associates over the last 22 years. A couple of them doubled up, did 2 years. They're lined up across the court, except for one I can see beaming literally, from Paris. There's supposed to be one from New York, but typically I think he may not have made it. And maybe he's just reminding me of old times. Anyway, all my associates have been clever and funny and well-read, and it's quite true. I always did just ask, what are you reading? And if it was good, I took them. The attorney mentioned that I was an astute judge of character, and there is your evidence. It's very gratifying to look at them because it reminds me what excellent taste I have. I should also mention some very capable research assistants over the last 6 years, one of whom's watching online from Oxford, who've made my job easier by looking for subject matter for speeches, not so much with the actual speech writing, because people in their 20s, curiously, are surprisingly keen on orations, which is not really my line. The first 2 years I spent as Chief Justice from 2015 were difficult and demanding for a number of reasons. The next couple of years were much better as I got the hang of things and I started to think I was on a roll. Well, COVID. I had thought, when I announced my resignation in October last year, that things relating to COVID would be smoothed out by now, but it turns out not really. But I do have the comfort and confidence that comes from seeing over the last 2 years how well the judiciary and the profession and the administrative and registry staff of the court have been able to innovate and adapt to these conditions. And on that topic, I've got a lot of gratitude to express to both Chief Judges, O'Brien and Devereux, for their cooperation, the Senior Judge Administrators, Lyons and Boscawen, Judge Smith of the District Court, Justice Bryan of this court, who put in Justice Burns, of this court, who put in an enormous effort in the criminal jurisdiction, all my colleagues who did whatever was asked of them in whatever frustrating, unreliable format it had to be done. And I thank Chief Magistrate Gardner and his deputies, the heads of the Bar Association, the Law Society, Legal Aid, the DPP officers and the law enforcement agencies, as well as our own court staff, particularly Julie Steele, Darren Davies and Amanda O'Brien, who've worked in and out of hours to keep the justice system on the road. I'm a little besotted with the legal profession. I think that there are so many people who care about good outcomes and will put in unrewarded effort to achieve them. On that note, I've been proud to be associated with a number of volunteer organisations, Law Right, Court Network, My Community Legal, the Justices of the Peace Association and the Zephyr Foundation, whose volunteers restore your faith in human nature. And a volunteer organisation of which I'm particularly fond is the Crown Law Choir, who have done me the honour of undertaking to sing today at the morning tea. which will follow this. And I will ask you all to humour me in this, because this is my day. Would you all please maintain silence just for the two songs that they'll sing, so we'll all get to hear them. Well, that was wordy, a little self-indulgent, embarrassingly devoid of lofty thoughts. But I have one last piece of good luck to mention, which is the unfailing support of my husband of 40-something years, Arthur Preston. I doubt I'd have had this career without his backing and cooking. We have produced 3 children, Ellen, Rosemary and Martin, of whom we are fond and proud. I hope that my luck holds out long enough for me to spend a lot of the years ahead with all of them. I did see them wincing as reference was made to that prospect. Thank you all very much for attending.
Thank you. All present are invited to join the Chief Justice and judges for morning tea in the Portrait Gallery. Let these proceedings be recorded, and I invite the Chief Justice as her last judicial act to adjourn the court.
I think I can manage this one. Adjourn the court.
All rise. Court is now closed.